You feel it when you look into her eyes too long. Not love, not lust, something older, slower, like a shadow crawling up from beneath your ribs, whispering in a language you've forgotten, or maybe never knew. You weren't warned about it, not by your teachers, not by your mother, and certainly not by the blue-lit sermons of modern masculinity. But it's there, that subtle pull, the gaze that unmans you, not with cruelty, but with something colder. Indifference wrapped in the suggestion of warmth, a mask you mistake for affection. This is not a video about hatred. This is about understanding what lives under love, in the sub-basement of attraction, in the place where Eros becomes devouring, where the anima isn't your muse, but your executioner. You've known women who gave you life, but there are some who took something you've never gotten back. And the terrifying thing? You handed it to them willingly. There's a kind of woman that doesn't break you with violence. She does it with mystery. She pulls from the same feminine wellspring as the nurturing mother and the sacred lover, but her water is poisoned, and yet you drink, again, and again, and again. Why? Jung would say it's your soul trying to see itself, in the form of its opposite. But what if the mirror lies? What if the reflection seduces you not to help you integrate, but to feed? You say you want truth, but do you want it when it doesn't set you free, when it binds you deeper to the same hunger that is killing you? Because that's where we begin tonight. Not with an answer, but a wound. A kind you don't even remember getting. Only that something in you was taken, and she smiled when she left with it. There is a particular silence that follows a man after heartbreak, not the kind where love simply ends, but the kind where you never really knew what it was. A betrayal without a crime, a vanishing act without a warning. She said all the right things, looked at you like you were her world, told you she felt safe with you, that you were different, that you could go far together. But somewhere between the promise and the parting, something shifted. The sweetness became salt. The softness sharpened. You looked into her and saw a stranger, but you didn't want to believe it. So you stayed. You gave more. You dimmed your fire. You lowered your voice. You asked, "What did I do wrong?" And she never answered. Because the answer was something she didn't want to say, or didn't know how to say, or worse, never needed to. This is the part most men never speak about, not because they don't feel it, but because they don't understand what just happened. You didn't get dunked, you got consumed, bit by bit, soft bite by soft bite, from the dream, until you were more of her than you were of yourself. Carl Jung once wrote, "When an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fate. An incarnation of your deepest unclaimed parts, dressed in lips and eyes and warmth." She didn't lie. She simply was what she was. But you saw what you wanted her to be. And that's where the fracture began. Think about that. What if she wasn't the problem? What if you projected something onto her, something ancient, something buried, something that didn't belong to her at all? Or worse, what if you recognized her, the dream you forgot, the dream you are? She showed up like fate because she was, not in the romantic sense, but in the psychological one. Not in her deception, in your projection. You didn't fall in love with her. You fell in love with your anima, and she became your executioner. There is a terrifying concept Jung alluded to, but never spelled out in full, that some women, not all, but some, don't just live in the world. They live in the collective unconscious. They are not merely people. They are archetypes, gatekeepers, temptresses, vessels for things older than morality. And when you meet them, really meet them, it is not about dinner dates or shared interests. It's about initiation, trial, descent. They pull you in, not because they want to possess you, but because something in them, and in you, wants reconciliation through conflict. This is not about blaming women. This is not about victimhood. This is about what your unconscious brings to the altar of love when you haven't integrated your shadow. You don't see her clearly. You see through the lens of longing. You want the Madonna, but your soul chooses Lilith. And while you beg for nurture, she demands blood. You call it dating, but it's myth. You've been here before, not in this body maybe, but in the script. You the knight, she the enchantress, you the lover, she the distant star, you the seeker, she the gate that never opens. And unless you wake up inside that story, you'll keep acting it out. No matter how modern you think you are, your biology, your mythic inheritance, your unconscious wounds, they've written a story for you, over and over, attracted to the very woman who will undo you, and calling it chemistry. Jung called it the possession of the ego by the anima. It's why you can't stop thinking about her, even when she's long gone. Why her absence hurts more than her betrayal. Why a part of you would take her back, even knowing what she'd do to you. Because she is not just a woman. She's the missing piece of your inner world, warped, distorted, untamed, and until you face her inside you, she will keep arriving outside you, not to heal, but to haunt. Shadows don't die in daylight. They need your attention, not your repression. And until you learn to see through the seduction, you will follow her into every burning building and call it love. Carl Jung did not merely describe the human psyche. He mapped it like a mythic forest, a place where every light was born of darkness and every angel wore the shadow of a demon. To enter that forest as a man is to come face to face with her, not her, the woman in your life, but her, the anima. And when she is unconscious in you, when you've never seen her, named her, or wrestled her, she finds her way into the world through flesh. He hands over his sword. He builds temples to her moods. He becomes the faithful dog at the altar of a woman who never asked to be worshipped, or worse, one who did. And you call her my type. She is not soft. She is not safe. She is not yours. She is the image of all women and none. She is the inherited voice of your mother, the seduction of the siren, the chaos of Dionysus in feminine form. The man possessed by his anima doesn't fall in love. He surrenders. And the tragedy? He mistakes it all for depth, for connection, for truth. But what he's really doing is reliving the unspoken, the unclaimed, the unmetabolized hunger for feminine approval that began when he was too young to speak and was shaped not by presence, but by absence. That's why you stay when she disrespects you, why you feel high when she comes close and half dead when she pulls away. The unreachable mother, the emotionally unpredictable female caretaker, the subtle withholding, the gaze that warmed and then disappeared. It carved something into him, left a hole. Is that she was never the point. And now, every woman who resembles that early wound, who mirrors the pattern of emotional inconsistency, of beauty without safety, feels like destiny. He calls it attraction, but it's reenactment. The psyche, Jung said, is not moral. It seeks wholeness, even through destruction. That's why you can want a woman who makes you less of yourself. Your unconscious is trying to finish the story, to finally earn the love that was withheld, to prove once and for all that you are enough by convincing someone who never will. And what you don't realize, she was the stage, you were the actor, and the play was written long before either of you met. In Greek myth, there's a woman named Circe, a beautiful sorceress who seduces men only to turn them into pigs. Not out of malice, not even out of pleasure, but because they come to her already half animal, unconscious, lust-driven, weak. Circe is not evil. She is a mirror. She reveals. And most men who meet her do not survive her. Not just his desire, but his submission, his longing to be known, to be chosen, to be completed. The modern world is filled with Circes, women who possess a magnetic, mysterious energy that stirs something ancient in a man. But Circe doesn't complete you. She devours you, only if you come to her uninitiated. Not like a ghost, but like a subtle whisper that chooses your partners for you, that tells you who's beautiful, who's safe, who you should chase, who you should trust, even when your instincts scream otherwise. Because what she wants, what she tests for, is the man who sees through her glamour, the man who can meet the feminine without losing the masculine, who doesn't bow, who doesn't beg, who stands, not in defiance, but in sovereignty. Until you become that man, your anima will possess you. The worst betrayals are not when women lie to us. They when we lie to ourselves about who she is, because the unconscious demands that we fulfill the myth. But mythology is not destiny. It is only prophecy if you sleep through it. The shadow of the feminine is rarely spoken of, because it is taboo to speak of the sacred and the devouring in the same breath, and yet they are sisters. In Jungian terms, the feminine is both the anima and the great mother. She births, but she also devours. She heals, but she also seduces toward ruin. She represents both the call to soul and the threat of psychic death. What you must see is that not every woman who awakens something in you is meant to complete you. Some awaken you only to show you your own weakness, your own fragmentation. They are not demons. They are initiators. She will feel like home. And then she will test you. She will create chaos where you thought there was harmony. And if you are a man without a spine, without a compass, without the inner marriage between your shadow and your virtue, you will call the storm fate and follow it until it breaks you. Not because she hates you, but because she is unconsciously possessed too. If you do not meet your anima in the unconscious, you will meet her in flesh. She will smile like the one you've dreamed of. She will pull you into moods you cannot control. She will elicit jealousy. A woman unrooted in her own soul is still powerful, but she becomes a conduit for archetypal energy, a storm without a center, and you'll thank her for it. You want to know the dark truth? There are women who, when you lie beside them, feel like the world has stopped spinning. But what's really happening is that you've left the world entirely. You're no longer in reality. You're in myth, in memory, in mother. She isn't holding you. She's holding the boy in you. And the longer you stay, the more he takes over. You stop creating, stop risking, stop leading. You soften. You apologize for things you didn't do. You make her your purpose. And she feels it. Not consciously, maybe, but viscerally. She feels the weight of your disowned soul, and something ancient in her recoils. But because she knows, even if she doesn't know she knows, that a man who lives in her shadow cannot protect her. Not because she's cruel, and so she tests. She withdraws. She criticizes. She looks elsewhere. Who doesn't need her to be anything other than what she is. Not for someone more attractive, but for someone more real. A man who has met the feminine in himself, who knows the chaos, because he no longer seeks completion. He seeks communion, soul to soul, not myth to myth. But before you become that man, you must go to hell. Your own personal, private, feminine hell. Not the woman, the projection, the hunger, the echo. The part of you that keeps recreating her, chasing her, serving her. You must descend into it. Burn through it. Die in it. Not as punishment, but as initiation. Until you can meet the gaze of a woman, not with hope or fear, but with vision. So here you are, not healed, not enlightened, just awake. And in that recognition changes everything. The spell weakens. The pull doesn't vanish, but it no longer commands. Whose mystery felt like religion. She may never have been cruel. She may not have even known the power she held. But that's the nature of projection. We make others carry what we refuse to own. Because now, you know the voice behind it. You've heard it in your dreams. You've seen it in your past. It's not hers. It's yours. You begin to see her not as angel or devil, savior or betrayer, but as a reflection. And that, you stop needing her to complete the story, because you realize it was never hers to complete. The woman you once chased, the one whose coldness intoxicated you, whose beauty disarmed you. She was never the goddess. She was the disguise, the goddess. Naked and silent, you will continue to bow to women who feel like home, not because they are, but because they reflect your inner exile, lives inside you. The anima doesn't want a boy, and until you approach her altar, that's the horror, but also the hope. Because the game ends the moment you no longer need her to mirror back your wholeness. When you stop trying to convince her to stay, when you stop apologizing for your instinct, when you stop begging for love through performance, she no longer holds the key. She'll provoke it, not to hurt you, but to expose you. She'll amplify it. You do, bearing not just scars until you integrate it, but sovereignty. And maybe, for the first time, that's what she sees in you. Manipulative. Too much. Maybe they were chaotic. Not desperation disguised as romance. Not emptiness calling itself devotion. But a man who has returned from the underworld, you see, she tests for a king. And the women you once called crazy, your virtue, or your backbone, or maybe they were the final exam. She fill the void, and then resent you for it. The threshold guardians of your unlived strength. Women are not here to fix you. They are not responsible for your vision, but they will mirror whatever you hide. Your fear of rejection, your lack of purpose, your buried anger. The feminine doesn't lie. She reflects. And the reflection is always brutal. So what now? Do you walk away from women? No. You walk away from illusion. You bury the lie that love is owed to you if you're nice enough. You kill the idea that devotion can buy depth. You stop building temples to strangers. And you begin with the war inside. The one that happens alone in the dead hours of the night, when you finally sit with the parts of you that made her God. Not the loud, righteous kind, but the quiet revolt. And you see them, and you don't look away. That's the real work. Not more tactics, not more red pill rage, not more shame disguised as truth, but silence and stillness, and the courage to look inward instead of upward when you ache. Because the archetype you seek, the muse, the mother, the witch, they're all inside you. And if you don't meet them there first, the world will make sure you meet them in ways that break you, until you learn. Or don't. Most men never make it this far. They get stuck in cycles. They jump from goddess to ghost to fury to muse, still believing that the next one will save them. They never look in the mirror, never trace the pattern, never see the ancient wound behind the modern mask. But you're here, listening. Still, that means something. It means the unconscious is stirring. It means your soul is cracking through the shell. It means that maybe, just maybe, you're ready to stop worshiping and start waking up. And when you do, the anima shifts. She is no longer the siren who leads you to ruin. She becomes the oracle, the guide, the sacred current that doesn't pull you under, but forward. And when that happens, the women in your life begin to change too. Or rather, you begin to see them, not through projection, not through need, but through clarity. And the man who sees clearly is no longer easy to manipulate, no longer easy to distract, no longer easy to seduce into the spiral, because he is no longer a boy trying to get back to the breast. He is a man who has entered the forest, faced the beast, and returned with fire. He is not perfect, but he is real. And realness is rare. So now I'll leave you with a question. not a conclusion, just a whisper. What part of her was really you? What if the pain she caused was the exact pain you refused to claim? And what if she showed up not to love you, but to force you to meet yourself? That's the part no one tells you, not because they're lying, but because most men never get far enough inside their own womb to see it. You have. Now finish the descent. And if you found something tonight that cracked your shell, that named what you could never quite say aloud, stay close. Subscribe, not for tricks or tips or hope, but for silence that speaks, for truth that cuts, for myth that liberates the soul that still remembers what it means to feel. Comment below with what part of this felt like it was about you. Because in the end, it always is. Welcome to Erosos, where nothing is sacred until it's seen, and nothing is true until it hurts.